Hello everybody and welcome to this week's bonus podcast. I'm Michael.
I'm Gemma.
And this week we're going to be taking a almost last look back, because we still got the Bobbins Awards to come, remember, an almost last look back at 2021 in Coronation Street, having a look at some of the highs and lows and middly bits and everything, and just kind of chatting about all the little bits of the year that we haven't really been able to discuss in our more recent episodes with the awards and everything. Now, something that we usually do in the main podcast at the end of each year, but we haven't this year in the cabin, is having a look at the characters, the top 10 characters in the year, yeah? And it's always been my job since I don't know how long to try and guess which characters featured in the top 10 character appearances of the year. Gemma, you've got that information there in front of you, haven't you?
Yes,
have you had to? It's not. Well, I'm going to guess what it is, and people can play along at home. I don't know whether people have had to look at this themselves. Are there? Just having a little look down. Do you think it's going to be easy to guess? Are there any kind of surprises in there this year?
It might be one that you go,
oh, okay.
I don't know.
Oh, we'll see. Right. Well, I'm going to jump right in there and say, is Abby in the top 10 for 2021?
Where do you think she is?
Oh, I get. We do this as well, don't we? Crikey, I'd almost say like in the top 5 for sure. Must be.
Yeah.
3?
She's number 2.
Number 2. Abby number 2. Fantastic. Okay. Right. Who else could it be? Now my mind's gone blank. Nina.
Where do you think Nina is?
7.
Nina is number 3.
Number 3. Wow, that's pretty good, isn't it? Well done. Okay. Let's do Fizz and Tyrone. Fizz.
Yeah.
Yeah, is Fizz in there? Fizz. Yeah. 5.
She's number 7.
She's number 7. Okay. Tyrone.
I need you to guess Tyrone's exactly.
Why? What do you do?
You might be surprised.
1?
Tyrone is number 1.
Is he? Wow, the most featured character. How many episodes was he in this year?
No, he's actually number 1 by 10 episodes over Abby.
Oh, wow.
So he was in 144 episodes and Abby was in 133 and Nina was in 126.
Wow, that's surprising, actually.
Isn't that actually amazing? Like,
yeah.
How on earth did he manage that? I think it's because he's been in Kevin and Abby stories.
Yeah,
and
I guess so.
And
good for him. This is
Tyrone.
like right back from the early days of the podcast, isn't it? Well, Tyrone was the number 1 character then as well.
If you look at like the total number of episodes, you've got Nina's been in 210 episodes this year, 126 of those were this year.
Yeah.
Abby's been in 375 episodes and 133 of those were this year. Tyrone was in 144 episodes this year, but a total of 2,252 episodes overall.
That's amazing. That is absolutely
Just
amazing.
imagine.
Almost
he's
like a quarter of the episodes of Coronation Street he's been in.
And he's probably got at least £1 for every one of them.
Probably. God, good
Rich.
for him. Okay, how many have I got so far then? What's that, 5,
got
is it?
Number 1, Tyrone. Number 2, Abby. Number 3, Nina. And number 7, Fizz.
Okay, let's go for the landlady. Is Jenny in the top 10 this year? Is she? Oh, that's nice. 9.
No.
2.
No.
10.
Because Abby's number 2.
I've lost. Oh yeah, she is, isn't she? Can I have a look at your list? 6.
She is number 5.
Number 5. Wow, that's really
right.
good. I'm really happy about. These are some really great characters that are in the top 10 this year.
And you don't even rate this year. What about that?
No, I don't. Well, we'll talk more about that later. That's looking good. Okay, what other stories
Who's
we had
number
this
4?
year? Is Roy in the top 10?
Nope.
No Royston. No Roymond there. Okay. What about, is Leanne?
Yes.
Leanne in the top 10.
Now, can you guess?
Lower.
We've got
I
number
would
4,
say.
number 6, 8, 9, and 10.
I'm going to say Leanne at 9.
No.
10.
No.
8.
No.
6.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I wonder if this is an unusual year to have a man as the top character.
Yeah, I wonder whether it is. That's a good point. Okay, let's have Nick then, if Leanne's in there. Any Nick in the top 10?
Where would Nick be?
I don't know. 8.
You're the one that wanted to do this.
No, I know. I always forget that you need
Nick
me
is
guess
number
this.
10.
Number 10, just sneaking on in there. Okay. Right.
You've got 3 characters to go.
Now
You've got
my
every
mind's
single
gone
one
blank.
you've said has been in
Has
it,
been
which
in
is
there so
actually
far. That's
pretty good.
That's a good going, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, my mind has gone completely blank now. I can't think of any other characters in Coronation Street.
Well, there's definitely a character on here that goes with another character.
Is there?
And there's also another character that goes with another. There's 2 people missing that go.
Kevin's not in there, is he? To go with Abby? Is Kevin in there?
No, it's not a question.
Yes, it is. Kevin is in there.
Yeah.
At number... He must be low. He's not been in that much, has he?
You've got
9.
4, 8 or 9.
9 for Kev.
Kevin is number 4.
Really? The 4th most featured character of the year? Wow,
Kevin
I would have
was
never
in
have guessed that.
124 episodes, and Jenny, who's the next one after him, was 121.
What's Kevin even done this year? I don't really know.
Got angry.
Yeah, basically.
He didn't even fall over this year. That was the year before,
No, I
wasn't it?
know. Okay, I'm really pleased with myself so far. Right, so I've got 8 and 9. Are these obvious ones particularly? Are they?
I wouldn't say one of them is, but the other one is still a character that goes with one of these characters.
Goes with one of the
So
characters.
You got Tyrone
already
number 1,
had.
Abby 2, Nina 3, Kevin 4, Jenny 5, Leanne 6, Fizz 7, 8, 9 are blank, and Nick is number 10.
Does he or she go with somebody who doesn't have anyone to go with at the moment, or does this person already have someone to go with, and this is the third person in
No,
the
this
group?
is somebody that doesn't have anybody
Right. Well,
associated with them in the top 10 already.
well, Jenny doesn't have anybody associated with her in the top 10 at the moment, but Daisy can't be in the top 10, surely, can she? Not.
Is that a question?
Okay, Daisy.
Daisy's number 8.
Whoa! The 8th most featured character of the year! Tell you what, that living in the Rovers really gets your episode count up, doesn't it?
110 episodes.
Amazing.
Now, that's the one I referred to when I said this will probably surprise you.
That really does, considering that this is only her second year in the show, and she only just turned up at the very end of 2020.
Well, this is why they had her be one of the people that specifically greeted Her Majesty the Queen.
I guess it was. Right, number 9.
Number
just
9,
one
I've
more left.
realised, also goes with somebody on here.
Goes with
that already has somebody. But I think I'm giving you too many.
I'm not
clues.
having enough clues at the moment.
You've got one person to go,
and I've got it all right so far.
Yeah, you haven't said a single
the
person,
pressure.
Which is
This
not
is
normally
unheard
how it
of.
goes.
This never happens.
Unprecedented.
It's
everyone's favourite.
It's not Sam.
Thing of
Sam?
the year.
Can't be Sam. He's only a kid. They wouldn't let him in that much in the year. I hope. Evelyn? No. Leanne, Jenny, Kevin. Who goes with Nina? Nobody really. Roy? Yeah. No, I don't know. Can I have more of a clue, please, miss?
You just said somebody that's really obviously related to this person.
Somebody related to...
Not related, like as in blood, but...
Somebody who... I just said somebody. Did I say somebody who was in there?
Yeah, you just mentioned somebody who is very linked to this person, and you're like, no.
Oh, I don't know. Come on, more clues. We need to get on.
They're a younger character.
A younger character. Asher.
Yes.
Hey, yes, I got my top
Michael,
10.
you
That's
just
amazing.
totally blew out
Sorry for deafening you there. That's incredible. Even Asher's made it into the top 10 this year. I suppose she has done a fair bit. That's a really solid set of characters for 2021, isn't there? There's not really a dud among them. I mean, I know Kevin's not one of our favourites at the moment, but he's a proper legacy character. But look at that. Abby, Jenny, Nina, Leanne, Viz. I love them all.
This doesn't sound right, though. The main characters, right, this is from coronationstreet.fandom.com, and it's got the running total, like I just said, so Tyrone's been in 2,252.
Yeah.
It's got Asher, and she's been in 108 episodes this year.
Yeah.
But her running total is 369.
Yeah, she really didn't have a lot to do,
That
and I don't
seems so
think
wrong.
I don't think that includes like uncredited appearances when she was
as
a
a
baby.
baby. Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
don't know whether they started credited her when Sunita brought
Yeah,
her back
okay,
when
all right, that
Tanisha
makes
started
sense.
to play her. Oh, so who's just out of the top 10, Gemma?
Oh.
Who didn't quite do enough acting this year?
Whose contract needs to be readjusted?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a joint 10. I didn't realise this.
Oh, is there? Go on, who is it? Just
Debbie.
tell me. Oh, nice. That's another fantastic character. Wow.
And you've got Roy Cropper, who's number 12.
I guessed right.
Dev, 13.
Nice.
Alina is 14. Summer is 15. David is 16. Carla is 17. Sally Metcalf is 18. Emma is 19. And Imran is 20.
Oh,
Yeah, that's really cool. And then you've got Simon's 21 and Toya is joint 21 with Simon, Toya and Daniel.
How many episodes did Imran get over Toya?
Imran's been in 83 and Toya was in 81.
Oh, okay. Pretty close that you picked us to the post there. That's really cool.
That's really cool though. Yeah, love it. Some fantastic
So some
characters
really,
there.
honestly, that is an absolute dream team of characters for me, the vast majority of that. But yeah, like you said earlier, I kind of 2021's just left me with a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. But I tell you, it's nothing to do with those characters. I think that on the whole, the storylines in 2021 for me, when they were good, they were great. And I think to some of my favourite parts of Coronation Street in 2021.
And when they were bad, they were horrid.
Exactly. Some of my favourite parts of Corrie that last year, the the Fizz and Tyrone storyline, I really enjoyed. I'm not such a fan of Alina, but I'm really pleased that couple, who's one of my favourite Corrie couples, got a great story. Abby, everybody knows that I love her. Jenny, same thing. That was great. The Coronation Street stuff was amazing. I think there were just some periods a little bit too much where it maybe dragged on for a bit too long, or the story disappeared and then came back later, and I thought, I can't remember what's happening here. But we will talk about that in a little bit, because before we talk about the stories and everything for the year, generally Coronation Street in 2021 had we were seeing the light after COVID, weren't we?
Yeah.
Eventually. I mean, we started the year, everyone was in bubbles. They made a huge thing about, oh, did you like that at Christmas? We had Alia and Jeff together up on the roof. Sarah and Ian had to bubble up together. And then straight into 2021, sorry, not long into it, we had Debbie and Kevin in the freezer because Mike and Sue had to bubble up together. But we're seeing the way out, and looking at the show now, it almost doesn't appear like there are many restrictions in place at all, don't you think?
It does appear that way. Obviously, everybody is dealing with a lot of impact from the new variant, which is incredibly disruptive. So luckily it seems to be fairly mild, but I do wonder whether people are panicking in Corrie, because the unfortunate thing is you can catch it more than once, COVID. And when it's as catching as this variant is, even if it doesn't knock you out and mean you're sick, you still have to isolate in England.
Yeah.
You still have to isolate for a certain period of time, which is, I just can't remember what it is now. They keep changing it.
Well, I think we're currently like a week, and then if you get a negative 2 days in a row, then you can go back to work again. So it is better, but you're right, it's going to be disruptive still for a good way to
you know, this hasn't seemed to have happened yet, but were they to film some scenes that were not socially distanced and somebody had COVID and didn't realise, I think it'd be very easy to give it to everybody and end up with a whole unit of people who aren't able to come to work.
They do their lateral flows, don't they?
Okay, Michael, everybody, listen. The unfortunate side effect of the pandemic and the measures that we're all asked to take is that when you catch COVID, a lot of the time people seem to blame you for doing something wrong. But it's perfectly possible to follow all the rules and catch it and spread it, because we both had, you got your positive test a few days after getting symptoms which you thought was a cold, and you tested on the day that you first got your symptoms, and you didn't get a positive result until 2 or 3 days in, and neither did I. So we both had COVID for 3 days before it showed up on a test. And you can't, even if you get a PCR test, you will not necessarily get the results the same day.
No, exactly. And I think Coronation Street, they must have been going through, I mean, I like all the continuing dramas, people having to duck out and isolate all the time, and to be fair to them, the whole of the pandemic, I mean, this is something that Ian McLeod as a producer should be so chuffed with himself with. They've managed to come through the whole of this relatively unscathed without noticing. I
genuinely think that's true.
There hasn't been a stop in production. Well, I mean, there was a stop in production, but we didn't run out of episodes. This year, we were able to keep up with our 6 episodes a week all the time. Yes, there have been actors dropped off. A lot of them are probably doing it privately, but somebody like, Sally Carman came out and said, yeah, I had COVID for a bit, and it was right at the height of that trial stuff in September. And yes, we're looking at it, you thought, that's a bit odd that Abby's disappeared, but bringing the actress back in, I'm sure they would have filmed some other scenes to sneak in at the last moment. It really does look very, very smooth. So props to everybody involved in that. I think it's been, particularly since the Coronation Street stuff, pretty much as a viewer looking like it did before. there's a few scenes where there's characters that are a little bit spaced apart. There was like the Christmas sing song a couple of weeks ago where nobody was quite close together. And but on the whole, if a character needs, or it would benefit the scene from them sitting on a bench next to each other, or being shoulder to shoulder or anything, it feels like they're doing that, and that's great. You got your kissing again, you're cuddling up on the sofa, and that's something that was sorely missed for a good long time in Coronation Street. It'd just be a real shame if
they started having sex. I agree. No sex, people
you
are
just
British.
caught me off in a strike. It'd be a real shame if they had to go back to the way it used to be. Obviously, they need to do everything safely, but it feels like the light is, the light at the end of the tunnel is within reach now.
I'm going to say I think there's going to be a point at which the government says, no more isolation, no more anything. If you got COVID, do what you like. It's up to you. Because it's going to get more prevalent, because it's going to be spread easier and the symptoms will get fewer.
Yeah.
There's no law against going around when you've got the flu. And I've seen people argue, I don't know, I haven't looked into it, that the flu is actually more deadly now than COVID, because at one point obviously it was the other way around. Flu is arguably more deadly than COVID, but there's no restrictions legally upon a person who's suffering from a flu, or indeed any kind of illness, I don't think, to isolate themselves or quarantine themselves. So at some point the government's going to say, do what you want.
I just wonder what that's going to mean for... Yeah.
But then that will mean that the Coronation Street doesn't have to worry. But until that point, they could be looking at a scenario that I said where everyone's perfectly fine, not really got very many symptoms, but have to stay at home for a week, and there's a whole load of them.
Yeah.
And if it gets staggered, and you've got like 2 weeks where a whole unit of people can't come into work, what a nightmare. And until that time, until the government completely does away with any kind of COVID quarantines for people, there's always going to be the spectre of this story could change at any minute. And what do you do if you're on the production team? Do you always have in your head, what if this doesn't work out? Like, is that not just a massive waste of your time and energy and brain space, or is it actually very much needed? I
suppose we don't know how much they've had to, call upon those backup plans.
I think it would make more sense from a point of view of, just being sane and not spending every waking minute of your day thinking about it, to say, don't worry about it until we have to.
Yeah.
But equally, there must be some massive storylines that just simply couldn't work. But then again, they managed to do the Corrie storyline without Abby when, Sally Carman got...
Yeah, and also, I mean, they had Seb and Nina as a couple together without actually... standing near each other, let alone kissing or hugging or anything. And that was, we had that voted as the top new couple of the year in the Conversation Street Awards last week. So
another thing that Coronation Street has done well, I think, is to be flexible with how they film things. So you have Izzy, the actress,
Shirley Houston, MBE, don't you know?
Yes, isolating at home.
That was so good that they were able to do that. And
filming her scenes there with her real life partner who
Toby.
got a job on the show.
That was so cool. I was really happy to see that. Obviously, the story was over and done with in a couple of weeks.
I don't know whose idea it was for this, but we do know that, as you say, Shirley's been given an honour by the Queen, MBE, partially for her. Well, I think it is mostly not for acting; it's for her services.
Oh yeah,
to,
definitely.
Disabled people and activism in that area. And was this her idea? I don't know.
No, I don't. I can't remember.
I don't know whose idea it was, but it's a really brilliant way of working around. Listen, it's a really brilliant way of working around somebody who needs different working conditions to other people. And if everybody could be this flexible, imagine what strides we could make to integrating people more.
Yeah, that was a really important story.
Not only was it important because it showed how she was still, the character of Izzy was struggling, but it also demonstrated very visually to like people around the country, this is how you can work with people on your staff who have different needs to the rest of your not just in the
right.
not just in the plot of the show, but also in in
production
the
methods.
production of the show.
But yeah, I'm also pleased with that story because it did bring us Fergus, and he's been
Fergus,
sadly
where's he
underused
gone?
recently. Fergus is fantastic. How many episodes has he been in so far? 8, 9, 10 maybe. I don't know,
he's
but
great, though,
he's a
isn't
really
he?
cool character, and I do hope that he gets. I mean, I'm wondering if when Izzy comes back to the show, is she going to be bringing Fergus on her arm? I don't know. I wonder, the other thing I was thinking about the COVID, and we will talk about things that aren't COVID related, but it's a bit of a talking point at the moment, everybody, is there have been some sets that we haven't seen very much of. Now, we have had a bit of a moan on the podcast about the fact that the Rovers has been really not frequently used for a good 2 years now,
People aren't going to the pub in the pandemic.
No, I know.
How dare they?
Although Jenny still managed to get into the top 5 characters of the year, it looks like.
And Daisy.
Yeah, exactly. But when they have had the Rover scenes, it's been fairly empty. And we have started to see a few more background characters in there now, haven't we? And in the factory as well. It's better, but it's not as full and packed and lively as it once was.
Definitely not, but it really is nice to see those rooms being slowly filled out.
Yeah. I hope that they do go back to filling them up properly, because I mean you might say that somebody on the production team might be like, wow, it wasn't too bad when there are only 6 people in the room. Let's not hire back all the background artists. We don't need them in there. The scenes work well enough without them. I think that would be a bit of a shame.
I don't think that's going to happen. I can see what you mean, and obviously I think we've all experienced to some extent or another companies who have cut back on services or other things because of COVID, just going, well, nobody complained about that, we'll just carry on like it is. But
yeah. But I mean, at least we've seen the Rovers. There have been some other sets that I really don't know whether we've seen at all this year. Trim Up North's been an odd one because they've talked about it. They've had Stu going and sleeping in there. Kelly's got a job in Trim Up North. Yeah, I don't think we've seen it at all this year. Is there something inherent about that set that makes it a death trap or a breeding ground for coronavirus? I don't know.
Maybe the square footage has to be a minimum amount for.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like we've stepped inside there. Is that a particularly small set? I don't know.
I think it was. But it's pretty crowded, as I remember. And also, I don't remember.
I'm missing Vin Diesel the Weasel.
Yeah. But the other thing about that to remember is there isn't really. I know that in those 2 scenarios you just mentioned about Kelly, sweeping up hair or Stu lying on the floor, you wouldn't actually need very many people. Just those characters actually by themselves would have worked. But if you want to have somebody pretending to give somebody else a haircut, you kind of have to have them pretty close.
Yeah, you do.
And is it really necessary? Considering all of the health and safety things processes that have to be put into place, is it actually worth your time to say, yeah, let's get an extra in, let's get them to do the PCR test, let's make sure they isolate, blah, 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 so that David can pretend to cut their hair?
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
You don't really need
it's the same with the other salon as well. That's... The salon and some of the other buildings are still a bit of a casualty of this whole Ray's buying up the whole street storyline, because Debbie still seems to own. I've written it down somewhere in these notes. She owns, like, does she own the part of the cabin? I can't remember. She owns the salon for sure. I think she's the owner of Streetcars at the moment, Debbie. Yeah, she is. But nothing's really happening with that, because all we ever see is her in the bistro and occasionally Chariot Square. But even there, she makes a very rare appearance. But I'm hoping that in 2022 they'll maybe let's have her selling them off to someone. Maybe I don't know, and maybe we'll get to see the inside of the salon, or maybe the salon turns into something else, because lots of people have always said that having a Trim Up North and the salon there has been a bit of a doubling up for no particularly good reason, and it was Alina's nail bar for a bit in the summer this year, wasn't it? And now it's just nothing. So I don't know. Claudia must be coining it in at the moment, because everyone's obviously going to there instead.
Don't forget our old little group of shops that we used to live near had literally 2 Indian takeaways about 4.
That's very true. We did, didn't we? Sport for choice. Yeah, I think.
And they've been there for about 25 years, both of them.
Yeah, I think what you were saying about the square footage and everything. So Salon is quite an enclosed set, isn't it? So's Preston's Petals, and that's one that is filmed on the street, isn't it? There's not a set from Preston's. It's literally on the street. You go into the building, and there it is. So that's an actual building. So maybe that is a little bit unsafe there, and why we haven't seen much in the flower shop.
I'll just quickly say that's the case. Some of them, that's a very rare thing where the set will actually be in situ,
That's the phrase I was
some
looking
of
for.
them will have nothing behind the door, and some of them, like Roy's Rolls, have got like a little tiny quasi kind of area that looks authentic from a certain camera angle to fool you, but the rest of it's just nothing.
Yeah. The we haven't seen much of the cabin this year, have we?
No, and it's Kathy and Brian.
I reckon if you were to, take a straw poll of just pick a random Coronation Street viewer in the street and say, who owns the cabin at the moment, then I bet a lot of people wouldn't know.
Do you know what? That would be a really fun thing to do at Media City one day, is to just stand outside the set and see if there are any like Corrie fans and go, right, Corrie quiz time. Let's see how
I want to
much
ask the actors as they go in.
Yeah, and then if they
Melanie Hill, who owns the cabin at the moment?
I think she might know.
I think she might do.
And then if they get it right, we give them a piece of Conversation Street merchandise, and they go, what's this?
On the flip side, though, there have been some sets that I think we've seen more of. Like the factory is finally being used because it had that glow up. Was it 2020 maybe?
Such an unfortunate time to make over a set that then became inherently unusable.
But we've seen a few people on sewing machines this year. We've had a few more scenes. It's still a little bit. It's still very office based, isn't it?
Sitting around doing nothing in an office, which makes me think that maybe it's some kind of commentary on office workers from the writing team at Coronation Street. I think they're all like limp-wristed Southern Nancys who work in offices in London doing nothing.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked lots about the factory and how it's maybe closing time or it just needs to be turned into something else. But yeah, I wonder whether some of these businesses that we haven't seen much of or that Debbie owns, is this going to be an opportunity for a bit of a change? I don't know, because Coronation Street, some people would say, is a bit stuck in the past and they don't like there to be the change.
No.
And we said that when Ray was going to tear down the street, maybe that wouldn't necessarily be a 100% bad thing. I don't know. I've got a feeling that eventually things will go back to being the same old. Although change still happens. We have Shuttleworths this year, don't we? There's a funeral parlour on the street for 2021.
Hooray! That's what we needed. Just a nice bit of levity to the pandemic.
That's been a bit of a controversial addition to the set, hasn't it?
In hindsight, I would imagine that perhaps they think to themselves, "Oh yeah, maybe that wasn't a good idea." But I haven't found it offensive.
I haven't. I think lots of
some people have, and that's with good reason.
Absolutely,
it's not been a great time, has it? But
no. It's not been offensive to me necessarily, but some of the stuff in there, like, remember the scene earlier this year where Todd and George were chasing around the coffin, then Todd, it was with Phelan's ashes, wasn't it?
That.
And he falls over and Phelan's ashes go over. I was just offended as a Phelan fan more than just, this is such bad taste.
There you go, it goes to show you that when it affects you personally, you have a problem.
Exactly. For some people, they don't like it because they know somebody who passed away in the past couple of years. And with us, it's just because we really did like Pat Phelan.
Yeah, but also we do know somebody that passed away in the last 2 years.
We do know that as well, that's true.
We just don't have any feelings.
I think I like how they got a funeral parlour. I'm growing to like George more, although he's still not quite there as a character yet, is he? I think they're still trying to figure him out. And is he funny? Has he got a serious side? What's going on with him and Eileen? I know they're together, but what do you think?
I think he still feels like Eileen's man. Like I think there are two types of character. There's who ends up going out with an established character. There's a character who's purely introduced. This is so-and-so's new boyfriend. And then there's a character who gets introduced and then starts dating somebody.
Yeah.
And I think, if you say, for example, like look at Daisy, Daisy doesn't feel like a character who was introduced to eventually ends up dating Daniel.
No.
Daisy feels like a permanent character who started dating everybody, and that's, part of her ongoing story. Whereas George feels, if you said to me George came in to be Eileen's boyfriend, and now he's going to leave because he's been there for 2 years, I'd say, okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel like a character in his own right yet, and it's probably because of COVID and due to the fact that he has had very limited interactions with anybody who isn't Todd and Eileen.
Yeah, absolutely. You're totally right.
But I think they're trying to remedy that. For example, putting him in with Sam. But my worry is that if there aren't enough other characters that it feels like he could have a genuine connection with.
No,
which is weird because there are plenty of characters who don't really talk to anybody, but still feel more established than he is. But I guess it's because he's not been there for very long.
No, I mean, you're not going to hopefully have to have much to do with the funeral director in real life.
Would not expect
very often.
to.
So I think, yeah, they really should try and integrate him some way into someone else's story, just getting him into, integrating a little bit more, which they've started to do a little bit more with the Baileys, but it's still been very slow going for them. But I'm fairly happy with that set. Quite like the new speed dial set. It's a bit of a change. Speaking of sets, I'm sure by this point we're supposed to have had this new bit of the set, aren't we? A couple of years ago they started work on the development there on a new frontage and a new visitors centre and everything. That's obviously been put on hold. So hopefully in the next few months, 6 months maybe, we'll be able to see a new set. But I do, every time they open up a new bit, think it's just more and more reason for them not to go out location filming, and it's a real shame that they feel more and more walled in. Now, we first saw them go out. It was funny because as the year went on, they gradually took baby steps outside Media City, didn't they? There was like one scene with I can't remember who it was. Was it Simon collecting drugs from someone just on Trafford Wharf Road, just outside of it? we had Nina getting attacked just outside the Coronation Street set by the Imperial War Museum. But then we also had a little bit on the wastelands. We're slowly getting out there, and I totally get how you couldn't just have Coronation Street cast and crew going around willy-nilly during the main height of the pandemic, but they really...
Well, nobody was allowed to go anywhere.
No, exactly, but I really hope that in 2022 they start to extend out, but the more they have their own sets, you got your permanent hospital set, you got your prison cell set, the more that you have, the hotel, because Chariot Square is being used ridiculously high amount compared to how hotels have been needed in the past in Coronation Street. It's just a shame because every time Chariot Square comes on now, it's like, oh, there they are again.
I don't know why they don't have different wallpaper on the different walls, because it does, like, we haven't been there for a long time, but when we were there, the whole thing was cohesively decorated as one big space, which makes sense. But the way they're using it at the moment, if they just painted all the walls different colours, it would look like a different set.
Yeah, I mean...
each time, and it wouldn't be so glaringly obvious.
What makes Chariot Square different from some of the house sets?
But at least they're not pretending it's a different place.
No, exactly. But what makes it different to some of the other sets is there's other houses and businesses and whatever that can be taken apart and then brought back again when it's needed, where this is permanently above the police station. They can't wheel something else into that set, so that's always
like they could
there.
Just put a wall... fake wall. I don't know. I don't have as much of a problem with it as you do, because I think it's like the function hall. It's like, instead of having a community centre, it's kind of like the old Mission.
I guess it is. Yeah,
it's it is. Isn't that a sad indictment on the lack of spirituality and rampant consumerism in this country that we replaced a mission hall for good Christian folk with a sleazy hotel full of escorts and drunkards?
yeah, totally know what you mean. And it's a lovely wedding venue as well.
Of course.
What else have we got this
Both
year?
of
Before
them
we
were.
get onto the stories, we got more merch this year for 2021 in Coronation Street. In fact, we just had some mugs delivered today from the ITV shop, so that's cool that they're ramping that up.
And it came, the guy bought the parcel, and I looked down and it said your name on it. So I was like, what is this? Because I know I'm always ordering things. And when I looked at it, on the label, it said something about Love Island.
Oh, really? We can get Love Island stuff from there as well.
It's from ITV.
So that's great. We've got our R-Rail as well that you can get in some co-ops around the country. So I hope that as 2022 continues, that gets more and more, and maybe they expand out the designs a little bit, because they're still playing it a little bit safe, using the same old quotes and maybe modernising some of the designs on the merch, because there's only a certain number of viewers that actually want a Bet Gilroy quote on the mug, isn't there? But that's great, because I've been asking for that sort of stuff for years. Go on.
I was just like, we had a discussion about who wants stuff and what do they want, and what market research have they done, etc.
Yeah.
But the only thing, like, I know that they're trying to branch out more into younger viewers by having such a big cast of like teenage characters. I just wonder, like, how do you appeal to the youth? And the only thing I can think of is TikTok filters.
Well, it's something to do with phones, anyway, isn't it? And they tried that with Coronation Street Words and Design just last Christmas, and that's kind of fizzled out this year.
As long as they get
gutted.
the money, as long as they got the money for the license, I don't think they really care.
No, I know.
And what happened to those two boys that were supposed to be on TikTok? That were supposed to be famous TikTok people.
I don't know what happened
who
with
were going to promote Coronation Street to the youth.
Maybe they defected to Hollyoaks or something.
Maybe.
Yeah, the Words and Design stuff is a real shame for me because as repetitive as that app was, I really, really did enjoy every time they had an update going, oh, I wonder, which room are we going to do in the house
I know,
now?
But you mostly liked it for the script.
I did. I loved it for the script.
Little design thing.
Yeah, but they teased us with that because when you first go into it, you can see a whole map of the street, can't you? See Coronation Street, you can see down a bit of Rosamond Street, slightly into Victoria Street, all the back gardens and everything. So the potential was there. The groundwork was laid to be able to go inside all these houses, have tons of classic characters from the past, and in the end, we ended up with Bet, Ken, Jack, Vera.
That's still pretty good.
And I think that's it. 4 characters.
Michael, you and Polly, 3 other people, are joining in, commiserating on this, and everyone else probably didn't play it.
I know, which is why they didn't carry it on.
A big props to them for coming up with something that was as tailored to Coronation Street as it ended up being, because it would have been very easy to have done absolutely nothing, no script, nothing funny, no real integration whatsoever apart from licensing the name and putting a couple of pieces of character art in there. They actually made a massively long script that was really funny and full of really great references.
They did, so which makes it worse to me that it just stopped. The updates became further and further apart, and it's been 6 months maybe now. I'm guessing since the last one, so I think it is over. But maybe they'll surprise me. The other, I think we'll go back onto the stories in a minute. But the other thing for 2020 that sticks out to me as a massive change in the show was the whole debacle over the summer with the uploading the episode early onto the ITV hub on Monday morning during the Olympics. And I'm sure if you were listening to the podcast back then, you'll remember that we were quite incensed at this move, weren't we?
Oh, we lost our minds, didn't we?
Just because, what were we mad about particularly? It was because we I'm sure we had a very good reason to be mad at the time.
The reason that we were mad was because it feels as though it doesn't solve the problem of people want to binge watch something that's inherently unbingeable, and it also destroyed the sense of instant community that you get if you watch it live and talk about it on Twitter. Now, the thing is about Twitter is that it causes big waves, but actually not that many people use it, and even fewer people post. So the representation on Twitter of Corrie fans is probably not even an actual round percentage of the people that watch it.
Yeah.
So
it's a blip, I'm sure.
But the thing that my argument was that those quotes and instant reactions are what the tabloids write about when they talk about Coronation Street fans, this and that. And it is a load of fluff and nonsense, because it's just people, just like 5 people every time, saying some kind of outrageous reaction to something.
Corrie fans stunned as Yasmin throws Alia and Ryan out of their house.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
Who lives it? Zidane.
Whatever. Exactly. But it still generates discussion, and it still keeps Coronation Street in the news cycle. However silly and
for me, it was more personal and maybe selfish reasons that I hated the fact that other people had been able to see this week's Coronation Street and I couldn't because I was at work. And it was heavy going, wasn't it? In the summer, we kind of committed to watching all of the week's episodes on the Monday evening and recording the podcast. It was a real heavy Monday evening, and it's certainly not something that I'd want to carry on. But because I didn't want to go through the week worrying that somebody would spoil something on Twitter, and as it turned out, I didn't really see very much, if anything at all, during the week between Tuesday and Friday when other people were spoiling it. But eventually, if they were to bring that back and make it permanent, big surprise, shocking twist would happen, and it'd get out, and it's just a shame, and I think it probably is inevitable.
Steal its own thunder, because if the point of an episode is to shock you with a revelation, but then you hear the revelation before, the episode, are you going to bother watching it?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe,
But
or
we've
maybe
gone
it
through
gets
this-
more people to watch it. I don't know.
We've gone through this too much
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to storylines then. And what would you say was your story of the year?
It's probably the hate crime story.
Yeah.
That's been the one that's dominated everything. And Coronation Street was definitely the stunt, like the kind of the set piece of the year. But that was a culmination of things that happened in the hate crime story, because you had Abby and Corrie and everything.
Yeah, yeah. With Coronation Street as well, which, you know, not everybody liked, but I thought was fantastic fun, was it was hurrah, we're kind of easing off the COVID restrictions. We can do stunts. We couldn't do them for the 60th anniversary this year, but by golly, we can have somebody fall down a sinkhole this year. And although the hate crime story, I would say, was probably my story of the year. That week when we had the Coronation Street stuff, I was on the edge of my seat and just loving it, and also laughing about the ridiculousness of just the floor opening at convenient moments throughout the whole week. But it was silly, fluffy, amazing brilliance, I thought. But for sheer consistency, yeah, the hate crime story was it. And what was another proper highlight of the year for me was that 2 weeks, was it, from the attack onwards, where literally it was the only storyline. And we didn't have, you know, Sean and his MLM, or Billy, is he going out with Paul or Todd, kind of butting in there to spoil it. It was a really dense, brilliantly told story with a small cast of characters reacting to these horrific events. And it's honestly, I think it's something I'd like Corrie to try more often, taking a story that they know is going to land well and just going full out on that. Forget about the other ones, forget about the B stories. Yeah, I hope that they do try that again. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I thought it was a risky change of pace, wasn't it? Because if you don't like those group of characters, but you know, if any time you do something slightly unusual, it's going to be a risk, especially with the soap that is kind of known for being traditional and having a very set way of telling stories. And has to appeal very broadly to lots of different people all at once.
Yeah, yeah. We've talked about a lot about that one recently, so maybe we move on. But the Fizz and Tyrone story didn't get any nods at the Conversation Street Awards, did it? But I really enjoyed that, and I remember going to one of the Zoom press meetings this year, which is, you know, another COVID thing, and that's been a podcast highlight this year actually for me, being able to go to a couple of the press events actually virtually, and watching these interviews of the cast online, and that storyline was revealed in one that I went to, and I my initial reaction was, oh no, not Fizz and Tyrone, don't split them up, I just want them to get married because I think they're a great couple together. And but actually, even though they're still not back together, and it's like they maybe will do at some point, that's been brilliant stuff for me. I love the scene where Fizz found out about Tyrone fancying Alina. That was one of my scenes of the year for sure. That 8-9 minute epic scene where where both of them just opened up, and it was, yeah, just the raw emotions of and the very natural and relatable kind of dialogue between those two characters that I'm sure lots of couples have been through in the past. And all the fun stuff with Tyrone, kind of it's slowly dawning on him over the next couple of months that he was going out with somebody that was 15 years his junior, but could have come from another planet. About her being, you know, in the Instagram world, and he was a bit of a fuddy-duddy. Yeah, that portrait that they had done of them in front of the exploding car was that's one of my iconic images of Coronation Street in 2021.
It really annoyed me how little time he spent trying to understand Alina or anything about her country. Like, he didn't even know what village she was from. No. It's ridiculous. But obviously we had quite a few exits this year, and Alina was one of them.
Yeah, she was. She's popped off, hasn't she?
Quite a lot of the people that left have either gone to prison or died. So
or gone to Romania. She's a bit an outlier there.
Then you got Johnny, who's died. Natasha, who's died. Grace is in prison. No, Grace in prison. Grace has escaped, Norris is dead.
Yeah, that's not been so good for them, has it? I think we maybe haven't seen the last of Alina, because we did see her cradling her stomach. There was the whole baby thing, and
I don't want her back too soon.
I don't want her back too soon. I think that she very well could come back soon.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if she came back next year.
No, I wouldn't.
I haven't predicted that she will, but maybe that should be a prediction of mine, is that she returns.
Yeah, well, I remember when she got pregnant, I was disappointed because I didn't need Tyrone to be, saddled with Alina for the rest of his life. And then when it turned out she had a miscarriage in the fire, I was kind of a little bit pleased with it. But that was quite a good twist, 'cause I don't think the miscarriage was spoiled in the press beforehand, so that was quite cool that happened. Sorry, Alina. But then when it turns out that maybe she is pregnant again, it's like, oh, okay, it's lingering there in the background, is it, to descend on us at some point in the future. But yeah, I think Johnny's exit.
Absolutely tragic. One of my favourite things of the year.
And obviously Seb as well.
Giving time to that relationship and those two characters who were such a massive part of Coronation Street. The unfortunate side effect of COVID is that the landlady of the Rovers is no longer the top job. I don't think there is, the Queen of the Street, the job for, job description for that. Seems a bit fractured now, but hopefully, I really truly think the Rovers is the heart of Coronation Street.
It really should
and
be.
I think if one thing is on the to-do list for this year, it should be sort of return the Rovers to its former glory. So even though we didn't get to see much of Johnny and Johnny over the past couple of years because of COVID, I'm still really glad that they took the time to give them a really truly tragic romantic exit.
I loved it, and that them splitting up was another massive rant from me earlier in the spring, wasn't it? Was it early summer? I can't remember, when she ends up bedding Ronnie. But I loved the fact that it was an amicable split, and you're right, that the last moments were just great. And Richard Hawley wanted to leave, so it's not like Corrie said we don't need that character anymore. Fair play, and now Jenny is free to mingle again, and she's already been doing a bit of mingling with Leo, so we'll have to see where that goes. But I think if the Rovers is to become that central hub that it once was, we do need to get more characters in there at once. One of the things about Corrie in the past was, like, during the early bits of the episode, you'd have all your characters going off and doing their daily business, and then towards the end of the episode, pubs open, all the characters from all the stories kind of converge in there, and then you have different crossover of stories when the characters chat at the bar about what they've been up to, and then you get a scene of one character in a booth with another set of characters in a booth, then you have the characters over there, and that community feel we just haven't really had, because there's only ever one story going on at the Rovers at the moment, isn't it? So who should we sit in the Rovers? I mean, the cafe seems to be the social hub of Coronation Street at the moment. At least sometimes they have one story going on one set of seats, and then the other side of the room maybe somebody's watching in on them, and that doesn't feel right. As much as I love Roy, the Rovers should be the heart of Coronation Street. So get more characters converging in there at the end of the episode, and also I would say try, and I don't know how, but to build up the bar team, because when the Rovers has been at its best, it's had a real solid group of bar staff as well. If you think back to, like, you had your Annie, Betty, Fred in the 80s.
Yeah.
You had your
Raquel, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Being a barmaid used to be, an honour.
And a bit like where we said, who owns the cabin at the moment? Would many people know? If you were to say to the average Corrie fan, like, who works at the Rovers at the moment, I think people would struggle to say anything other than maybe Jenny and Daisy. I think I maybe would as well. She's there, but she doesn't really do much, does she? Does Ryan still work there? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not obvious, is it?
Gemma obviously doesn't, but that you need a really strong team there, and they just do not have it.
Shall we talk about what new characters have arrived?
Well, yeah, okay. Very little this year. Possibly is it a COVID thing, or maybe they think that finally this
there's enough
increasing cast list is bursting at the seams. Yes, we've got rid of a few, but really the only I think the only character who came in this year and has become, gone on the regulars list is Ronnie. And even he's not done a whole lot this year, has he?
No, so you got Ronnie, who we all was like, oh, is it Michael's dad? That was
that was
funny.
part of the story at the beginning, wasn't it? Because about his dalliance with Aggie 30 years ago, or however old Michael's supposed to be. I can't remember, maybe that much. Yeah, oh yeah, for the Tim story, exactly. What a strumpet.
Ronnie, Harvey, Curtis, Phil, Jacob, and Sabine. So weirdly, only one female character there.
Yeah, I don't know whether there's been any other ones that I missed on this little list here, but and even Sabine wasn't technically a new character. I know that Zora Bishop came in and took over the role from the last actress in the role, but I'm really, really glad that they did bring her in. I was very cautious when I first heard that they were bringing Sabine back, and I think maybe the cautiousness was just because I thought, her and Imran are going to get back together again, and although that didn't happen, we still do have Imran having a dirty secret from Toya about his night between the sheets with Abby. But yeah, Sabine was great. I hope that to maybe see her again sometime. But we got Jacob was also fun while he lasted. Obviously he's back again now, but he's had 2 episodes maybe since his return in December, so I'm imagining that they're saving something for him for this year. Phil was fine, but he always felt very temporary, as did Curtis, and I still don't think we've had the announcement from Coronation Street or from Sam Redford that yes, that was Curtis's last episode. But yeah, I'm surprised that there hasn't been anyone else who has, gone down as an instant classic Coronation Street character, because Ronnie's okay. He's had his moments, but I don't think he's going to be on anyone's favourite characters list of the current cast, apart from maybe Vinters.
There's quite a few people that think he's quite the hunk.
They do. Bursting out of his shirts there.
But I find this quite notable because we've had a lot of regulars leaving and no real replacements.
Yeah.
But I think, honestly,
that's good.
I think that's right. I think you're right. I think that we should be getting rid of characters.
Yeah. They don't need replacing.
Unfortunately. But you do. The thing is, though, you say that they don't, from a perspective of the cast is already very big, they don't need replacing. But from the perspective of, we do always need fresh blood on the show. They do need to keep.
Well, in some ways, we've had fresh blood. I mean, it's not a new character, but it's a big name that came back to the Cobbles this year was Sharon, and she was a lot of fun for the couple of months that she was in it. She had one of the most memorable scenes of the year for sure with Avett. So that was quite a nice to have her back. We've had a couple of other mini returns, like Claudia came back for Norris's funeral, didn't she? That was lovely.
That was nice. Where'd she go? I was so excited. I was like, yes, Claudia's back.
But no.
No.
We had Frida, of course, controversial, but I still stand by the fact that I absolutely adored that scene at the community centre, and nobody can persuade me otherwise that wasn't a really well-written, well-performed scene. Also, leading into another positive for the year, I think Gemma is maybe, I'm really hoping turning a corner and going back to the Gemma, similar to the Gemma that we loved when she first came into the programme, although we have seen, of course, many a time that as soon as a character has a child, suddenly that's it. They're just a parent for a long time.
Just like real life.
They can talk about nothing else.
They become very boring.
Yeah, but,
that's just a joke.
But I think both Chesney and Gemma were very quiet. They didn't really feature on the Corrie radar at all in 2021, did they? I'd be interested to see where they came on that Coronation Street character list that we were looking through earlier. You said Harvey earlier as well, didn't you? They like to bring in a villain or two each year. We had Hashim, who made less of an impact than Harvey, but I think Will Mellor did a jolly good job being an intimidating villain. I thought that the drug story with him started off kind of well, and fair play to Jane Danson for carrying on the momentum that she started off at the beginning of the Ollie story in 2020. Harvey was all right, but he did spend a lot of his time behind bars, didn't he? And there's only so much terrorising that you can do when you're sat behind a sheet of glass.
Personally, I think when it comes to villains, the best way is to recruit from in-house. But Will Mellor was definitely
Yeah.
sinister and pretty good, and he had, you know, that kind of weight of being a name
Yeah.
behind him.
Yeah.
I'm definitely rooting for them to do something with a female character who becomes a villain.
I know.
I really think they need to do something with a long-established character if they want us. I don't mind if you introduce them to be a villain, but it has to be, and they have to establish themselves as kind of like Pat did. Pat was in the show for a couple of years or a year before he went away and came back again as, you know, the big bad.
Yeah.
I really think that those are the villains that work the best, rather than baddie of the year.
Yeah.
Who comes and goes and remains an unchangeable, you know,
I remember at first we wondered whether Debbie was going to be a villain because she was obviously in bed with Ray, wasn't she? She's been very much.
We both love Debbie. There's no hiding that fact. But would she ever want to leave? Which I hope she doesn't, because I really, really like her. I kind of hope they make her into a villain and she kind of leaves in a puff of smoke, like, you know, the evil queen in a panto. Do you know what I mean? We just don't have a great tradition of female villains in Coronation Street.
You don't, but I suppose if she were to go down the villain route, her sell by date. No, I don't. You know what I mean. Her time on the street would be limited.
That's what I just said.
But yeah. The
only way I'd accept her turning into a villain is if she said, "I'm leaving."
Oh,
what's your story going to be for me? And they went, "Well, finally, we'll load
turn you full on Cruella.
The evil backup disc for the rebooting you."
There's the potential with Daisy, of course, isn't there? And we were seeing interviews with Charlotte Jordan this year.
Award-winning Charlotte Jordan.
Exactly. AF or what? She didn't know. I think Coronation Street weren't completely sure where they were going to go with the character at first, and we've seen a little bit more of a human side to her recently, which I think is very important. But if they wanted to turn her proper villain, it wouldn't be out of character. She has already kind of drugged Ryan and got him into bed this year.
Yeah, but she didn't sleep with him, so it's perfectly acceptable.
And there was somebody else that I was thinking of as well. Sharon, obviously, as well, very villainous this year. But yeah, I thought that the Harvey drug story was okay. Thought that Nick and Leanne going into hiding, but nobody seeming to be able to stay in hiding in their little hotel was a little bit odd, because there was like, one of them went off to, who was it? Simon wanted to go and see Peter in hospital because of all his liver problems that he went through this year, and Nick went back to, I can't remember. It was all right, but it doesn't seem to have left a lasting impression, does it? And I think maybe Nick and Leanne need to be put on the bench for 2022. Whether that's going to happen with the surge in popularity for Sam, I don't know, and I think it would be a bit of a shame if we didn't see much of him. But don't need much more Nick and Leanne, I think, for the time being. The Peter liver stuff. It's so funny thinking like these stories that are at the beginning of the year. I wonder if you think about, you know, the big stories of the year generally. Are they the ones that start midway or just before midway, and like the stuff that we're seeing at the moment we'll barely even remember when we come to the end of 2022. I think all the duds at the beginning of the year. What do you think?
Well, this is what happens in the awards as well. The big awards shows why they put certain things at certain times, because they just get forgotten about.
Yeah, I suppose
people don't have that long of a memory, and I'm including myself, because I'm like a goldfish.
I think if Coronation Street had wanted this story to make a bigger splash, they could have done a little bit more on sticking the landing. That's all I'll say, because they had their wedding. Peter did his face plant on the cobbles. There was a load of great stuff where he was taking his shots of whiskey and
This is when he decided like he didn't want to be an alcoholic anymore. He definitely wanted to turn over a new leaf. He needed to get himself clean. He was in danger of dying, but because he was an alcoholic and he was biologically dependent on alcohol to live, he had to take the medicine. Like, it's such a difficult and almost unimaginable thing to ask of somebody who has an addiction. So that was really fascinating. And
it was, again, but then it stopped.
Yeah,
he got his transplant.
No,
you don't see Carla and Peter again for 6 months.
And it's funny because Carla and Peter are supposed to be like, you know, the marquee names.
They're a proper power couple on the street, and
Well,
I mean, Ali King and Chris Gascoigne, I
definitely.
really rate as
They're
actors.
massively popular. They've got huge fan bases. They're so popular that they're not even on Twitter.
Yeah. They're not either. Chris Gascoigne's on Instagram, but
so
they're elusive.
But would you know that if you just watched Coronation Street in the last year? No, you'd have no idea. If somebody said to you, Carla, if you landed on this planet as an alien in January 2021 and watched Coronation Street for some reason for a year, and they said, do you know Carla's the most popular character, like one of the biggest draws in that show? The alien would be like, no way, that's crazy. You aliens are weird. Because he thinks of us as aliens, you see.
Of course. Same with David Platt.
Yes, David Platt. Who? David who?
He was there relatively high up in that list that you read earlier. He was in the top 20. But when I look back, it's like, what went on there? I really hope that they think of something good for the Platts this year. They're losing their traction.
They really are in danger. They've got to be very careful because he is, you know, a massive character. But I feel like they're taking his performance for granted. And I don't know how much effort's being put into making sure that David's scripts are correct.
No, and I think Jack has kind of quite openly said that he'll stay as long as he feels that he's being given good material to work with.
Well, I imagine he doesn't ever need to work again.
No, probably very likely not. I mean, he's allegedly one of the biggest earners at the moment, isn't he? Apart, you know, if you don't count the old guard and everything. But they had some fun stuff with auctioning off number 8, didn't they? With the old bidding war, and then Gail ended up winning it. That was kind of fun. Then there was the weird stuff with Gail searching for a long lost Granny Fanny. And it's like, I mean, never mind the Carla and Peter Liver storyline going anywhere. What happened with Gail's Fanny and finding out that she was distantly related to George Shuttleworth? Literally wasn't mentioned again. I thought it was going to go somewhere down the route of, Audrey and George are secretly lovers and...
Well, listen, it was built in. It was like writes itself
lovers,
because
ancestors.
Eileen and Gail are natural enemies and have been for years. And George, you know, is related to Gail, but going out with Eileen. And they kind of tried a little bit of it, but it nowhere near lived up to the elaborate.
It didn't.
Laying down of clues.
They kind of started off with that, and then they said, "Oh, Ted's dead," who we haven't seen for years. Then they had that unfortunate funeral incident that a lot of people didn't enjoy, and then they just forgot about it. Then we had the story with Audrey not being able to see, which was another classic example of what we've seen a bit more of in Corrie recently. Of we'll drop a storyline in for a week and then disappears off for 2 months, and we come back late and we go, "What? Audrey can't say." Oh yeah, maybe I remember she backed into Rita once.
I just think that a lot of the Platt stuff is tied in with the sinkhole stuff, and they had plans that had to be put on hiatus because they couldn't film what they needed to.
I hope you're right. I hope that there's more to come.
And I think that they floundered, and you know, it's the thing. The good thing about Coronation Street and how they've dealt with the COVID crisis is that we can only speculate and guess as to where things went wrong. It's not like it's glaringly obvious.
It's not. It's
like,
really not.
I can see where the COVID impacted them and they couldn't do this, that, and the other thing.
I think that the main place that you can see that is the whole Ray building up the street, because that was looking something huge up to the 60th, and then it was kind of nothing, and then early in 2022 we had Abby having a bit of a protest on a truck, and then she catches him, which was a great moment. And then that's it.
Playing a 3-hour long game of Monopoly while somebody's hoarding all the hotels, and then the cat comes and does a poo on it, and everyone just gives up playing the game.
Yeah, that was a real shame, but at least they were able to save some of what they had presumably planned for the 60th anniversary with the sinkhole stuff in the Coronation Street this year.
But I'm fairly sure that they said that's when Johnny was supposed to die originally.
I think they've said that.
So he would have gone a year before.
So there's something we can thank the pandemic for, giving us an extra year of Johnny, although he was
sitting
obviously
on the
not on the show very much.
Who is shagging now?
So yeah, let's have more Platts this year, please. I mean, they have recast Max. We've got Paddy Beaver in the role now, and so that's often a sign that there's things to come. I don't know whether I necessarily want him to be the new face of the Platts, and I enjoy David as being the troublesome I enjoy him being the troublesome young at heart one than the
Michael,
I'm a dad and I'm going
you've
through
got to get with the times, my love. He's no longer the young
I know, I just think he's great being the one there, being the sarcastic dry, you know, the voice
It
of
does
the
wear
voice of the
somewhat
viewer.
thin the older you get. You just become a grumpy old bastard rather than being a
Yeah,
funny,
but
sarcastic
he's not
young
he's
man.
not he's not old yet. He's not past it yet. Both he and Sarah Lou are quite doing well for their age, considering, I mean, especially
Oh, really?
Sarah's nearly pushing 40, isn't she? Because she's only a
Never
few
heard of
years
that.
younger than us. But yeah, more Platts next year, please. We had let's have a quick rundown on some of the other stories this year. MLM story. Nice try. Giving Sean a story. I'm not going to say no to that because he's seriously underserved in terms of story, and I do like Sean, and I know that
But
I'm not in the majority
say,
there.
I know you like Sean. I don't dislike Sean. I know Sean has got a massive fan base. He must do, but he's also got lots of detractors. But his past two big solo storylines have been duds.
They have
the homeless storyline and the MLM storyline have both just fallen flat on their faces. And it's not any fault. I don't think it's the fault of the character or the actor. I just think it's unfortunate that his character was selected for two really boring, silly storylines.
The weird thing with Sean is, surely they were supposed to be doing something with Dylan, and he was brought back in 2020, or was it even 2019? I can't remember. The actor who played him as a kid being brought back now, and yet there was a few scenes. I'm sure it was this year where, like, was he been in it this year or Sean's on the phone to him and he's like, oh, what, you're being bullied because of your dad being gay?
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a storyline there, isn't there?
And then it was like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
Just tell him you don't care.
It's time to bugger off.
Yeah. Oh, solved it.
And I'm wondering what's going on there. That seems to be a casualty of COVID.
Yeah.
I think we may be seeing Dylan coming back, but then I said that this time last year and we barely did. The Billy Todd Paul stuff, not that interesting.
Heat pump.
Exactly. Heat pump is the term of the year, isn't it?
Heat pump.
Everyone knows what a heat pump
is now.
I know
we don't do this, but the Oxford Dictionary just selected a word of the year.
Yeah, I think heat pump is Corrie.
Yeah.
I think if I'm going to be rating this year's Coronation Street, I'll be rating it in heat pumps, I have to say. But that was a bit of a dud. I really do. The new actor playing Todd, that's Gareth Pearce. That completely eluded me then. I think he's settled well into the role now. I think he's ace, considering that this time last year we were a little bit about, I'm not too sure, maybe.
At one point when he first came in, I nearly cried on the podcast because I was not prepared for how he did not fit my idea of what Todd was, because the story was so crap.
Yeah.
But he's done a really great job.
He's so good. He's so good.
I think Gareth Pearce said that he's not going to watch. He watched performances of the previous actor before he came on, but never since. And I think that's definitely has proven to be a good choice.
Yeah. Because
he is his own Todd.
But splitting, I like him with Billy, even though they're clearly not suited for each other. But honestly, I think getting Billy, Paul and Todd, sticking them as far away from the street as possible is what those characters need, because put them together and they don't make that exciting a team. Even like the moments where we had Paul going to work with Ed, that made him a lot more likeable. Sticking funny, George in the funeral parlour with Todd in the funeral parlour with George, really great move. Those two have got a great chemistry together.
I think the obvious thing here that we're saying, and we have said before about other characters who are straight, is that the fact that these three characters are gay is the least interesting thing about them, and so a love triangle between the three of them is just boring.
Yeah, it
really was. It's the same with any straight relationship on the street. It almost always makes them boring and is a boring story, but that's the bread and butter of a soap, so how can we complain about it?
We've had Zidane come back this year, haven't we, for that money laundering story? That's
now, I was
not
pleased
really
to see Zidane return, but he has been a sourpuss.
He has, at least he's got Mariam to put a smile on his face at the moment. Yasmin, it's been quite nice to see her coming out of that coercive control story, although she's far from being, the poster girl of Coronation Street as she had been for the past 2 years. I think sticking her straight into that story with Kathy and Elaine being scared of mice.
I think overstating the...
I think having had those three moving in together, Kathy moving away from Brian because of the trolling thing, that did not work. But it was great, even just this week, to see Yasmin get more of her fire back. I'll be watching her with interest in the future. Toya and Imran barely registered on the Coronation Street scripts for the first half of the year, did they? But
they've had a lot.
They've had lots to do recently.
They were very good in supporting roles in other storylines, and now they're moving into their own. how is that going to turn out? Are we going to hate it?
They're supporting roles, and I
Don't
think
know.
they've stayed supporting roles. Imran, in particular, has been fantastic in the trial stuff. I really loved him then. I still don't know whether there's much that Toya herself has done that's made me go, yeah, that what a brilliant Toya moment that is. But they've got Elsie in there now. Obviously, there's the lingering issue of his sleeping with Abby. I think maybe I really think that 2022 could be Imran and Toya's year. We will have to wait and see. We had a few other issues stories this year in the racial profiling one. Felt a little bit box ticky. It didn't feel like a big story this year when Michael and James were arrested by that
I'm
copper.
sorry, they really fumbled it because there was too much like nuance around what actually, I know they really wanted it. If they really wanted it to be a slam dunk case of absolute pure racism, I don't understand why it's so difficult, because it's not as though this is not experienced on every street in this country every hour of the day. It's, you can't, people of colour know this happens all the time, but the story that they actually put it in, I felt was poor.
I remember towards the beginning of 21, I saw, I think it was Lorna Laidlaw talking about, we've got a really big, important racism story coming on this year. And I thought, okay, maybe they are. So we had the Stephen Lawrence episode the previous year, which was short, but it didn't feel like a massive story. Maybe they're going to go properly full on with a racism storyline this year. And they didn't.
But, we are white, so we don't experience these storylines in the same way.
Sorry,
no.
Could you say that again?
No, I shan't.
No,
in
what?
case it's incriminating.
My lessons as well.
I think that the Baileys still struggling.
Yeah, and this is the third year that they've been in it now. It's like, what's going on? They are ever so gradually branching them out, but it's not happening at a quick enough pace.
The thing about the racism storyline is that there's no... They don't want to sacrifice a character like they would have done in the past, where on Coronation Street we used to have main characters who aren't necessarily beloved, or let's protect Carla or whatever, throwaway characters kind of like Les, who they don't care if you like him or not, being casually racist or transphobic or bigots of any kind, sexist, whatever. They weren't afraid to show a bigger range of what's the word, opinions on things, right or wrong, admirable or completely abhorrent. But now it feels like everybody has to be completely PC and nobody says anything out of turn unless it's part of a storyline.
Yeah, I mean, you have Corrie being absolutely vile about some of the stuff that he was saying.
Yeah, but he was like the sacrificial lamb, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He wasn't a regular character.
No.
Like, if you say you had, I don't know, Ken turn around and go, I can't believe they've moved in next door. That would actually be probably truer to racism and how it's actually experienced and how it's really done in this country than, just a policeman pulling somebody over who is actually driving erratically. I just think that they've had a couple of cracks at it now. And unfortunately, it has diminishing returns too, because the more you do it, the more people close their ears and go, oh, here we go, another one of these, here's another story. I feel like I'm being preached to.
Yeah, they can pat themselves on the back to say that they've done racism now, but it's not worked. I do as well. I do quite like the Baileys. I think James is the worst of the bunch, but the others have all got their...
I don't have a problem with the Baileys. Again, it's
good points.
Their isolation that is difficult.
Yeah. But we've seen Aggie has potentially got a big role this year with the Tim story. Don't know how long that's going to run. I really
liked her scene, a very brief scene with her and Sally running around the table trying to plot
that was fun.
She's great. When you put Aggie with anybody, she's great.
Yeah.
When you have Ed down the pub, talking rubbish and going on about building, he's great. When you have Michael just being kooky and fun, he's great. They're all brilliant. It's like they're not really that good together, honestly, because the dynamic's kind of dull, and they had very few chances to do anything else apart from to be manipulated by evil Grace, who is now gone forever.
But at least they're a family, and there are fewer and fewer families of more than just one or two people on Coronation Street at the moment. Where I'm saying about a mum, a dad, and children. I know they're older children. But so at least they've
It's
got
a
that.
very
At least
traditional
they've got
family
that
unit.
going for them, haven't
Even
they?
if we had to import them from another street.
We had the factitious disorder story. That was kind of interesting, but also got a bit silly at the end. Environmental stuff with that again felt a little bit like, hey, look at us, we're flying the flag for.
This is the trouble.
Greens.
They are such important and impactful storylines. It feels like an impossible task to expect Coronation Street to do anything really properly with it, because you cannot solve racism in a soap. You cannot solve the environmental danger that we're in on a soap. You either end up being preachy and making everyone mad, or you trivialise it and make it stupid, which unfortunately they did with the environmental thing, because the person who's championing it is Maria, who couldn't give a crap about it unless her little beloved son's having an asthma attack.
Yeah.
She didn't even know. I don't even think she knew the planet was round before she started investigating climate change.
She's not exactly one of the most popular characters either, is she? So if you're going to have a character that could sound a bit preachy, having someone that people haven't got a whole lot of patience for, maybe not the best idea either. So I don't know. Okay, I think we're done with our discussion of the stories. Do you want to rate the year out of 5?
I already gave it a 3.
You're giving it a 3 heat pumps out of 5, are you? I think maybe I will as well. 3.
I think they're ambitious when they could be. I think that they held the line when they had to. I think that they've struggled and behind the scenes without us knowing. I feel like the whole thing was like a swan, serene on top, and absolute chaos beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Furiously paddling away, trying to get to the destination of no more COVID, and we're all doing that. So, thanks to Coronation Street and everybody who worked on it, and all the actors and the production staff and all the crew for working again under incredibly difficult circumstances to keep the show going and keep on 6 episodes a week.
Yeah, when
truly amazing.
When it was good, it was really, really good this year. But
yes.
But there was an awful lot of
But think about the standout moments of the year. I just want to say, the standout moments of the year showed me that Coronation Street can still do what it used to do, traditional, really character-driven stuff, Fizz and Tyrone. But they've also tackling modern issues with the hate crime storyline, but also they can still do the big soapy stunts with the Halloween week. And I think that those 3 things, are symbolic of Coronation Street and how they should be looking to the future and what they need to be doing, because those were solid and they are part of the core values of Coronation Street and what people want from the show.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, before we go on to our predictions then, podcast highlights of 2021, how's Conversation Street been in its 9th year, or is it 10th year? I can't remember how this stuff that works out. Yeah, with more mugs.
We've probably quadrupled our mug collection.
We're gradually building up our merch so that when we get contacted by the Sun magazine like you did a couple of years ago, and they're just can I have a picture of you and your merch? We're like, we haven't really got anything.
Yeah,
it's around the 60th, wasn't it? So we're gradually building that up, having a look over eBay. Yeah, but I think one of the biggest changes for the podcast has been the splitting of the bonus podcast from the main over a week. Now, a year ago we still did have the bonus podcast as a separate episode from the main one because it was getting just stupidly long, but I think it's worked quite nicely putting an episode out, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then another one out at the weekend. We haven't had a whole lot of feedback, have we, about whether people are liking that or not? But we did ask before we did it, like, what do you think? Would you like this? And I think more people said yes, it'd be good. I don't know whether there's many people that are not liking it, but it's working nicely for us, isn't it?
Yes, you can't please everybody.
No, and it's good to
keep
the traction
That's what we
going.
Did. Very good.
That's been
We're
good.
Still watching old episodes. I'm finding them less interesting.
We're in 2006 now, aren't we? We're going to go to 2010 and then go back to the classic
really
area.
Catching me, honestly. We've got new equipment this year.
Oh yes, we have, haven't we? That's been a change for 2021. We are recording this on our new MacBook with a microphone plugged into it, which was quite cool. Thank you very much, patrons.
It's thanks to our patrons who this year got got a t-shirt as a gift for their support if you were on the Bistro tier.
Yeah, no, yes, he had the Beast stroke.
Or the Rovers.
No, Rovers,
Rovers
sorry,
too.
Rovers got that.
So thank you everybody. We got some new patrons as well.
I wonder
we
whether
donated our patron money for December to Sophie Lancaster Foundation.
Yes.
So thanks again.
I wonder whether anybody can actually tell a difference in the sound quality. I don't really know. I'm not very good at telling things like that, but it has been really good being able to do this on the Mac and record it straight onto that. It's made things an awful lot quicker, and any way that I can save time doing the podcast now is a tick in my book.
We didn't get to go to Manchester this year, but we did do some bits for BBC Radio Manchester.
Yeah, I was on BBC Radio Manchester twice. You were on it once this year. It's nice that they've got our names in
I think we're on the book. I think we're on the contact list.
We need somebody to talk about
Street.
Coronation Let's get Michael and Gemma. I did my little quiz on everything, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah. And but I really hope we can get to Manchester this year. I think this is the first year for a very, very long time we've not been up north for the year, so we will seek to rectify that in 2022.
And finally, you have done lots of great interviews this year.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're always fun, aren't they? I mean, we've had a few more behind the scenes people this year actually, like Joe Parkinson, who was the story editor at the time. He's been he's been doing a few other bits and bobs in recent months. We had Martin Sterling, who was the storyliner for Coronation Street for a very, very long time. We had Stephen Evans was another interesting interview as well, actually, who was the former Inside Soap editor. I think lots of people really enjoyed hearing about what went behind the scenes at that soap mag.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've also had obviously some cast members as well.
We let them on.
Jack James Ryan, he was fantastic playing Jacob. Melanie Hill. Tanisha Gorey, brilliant this year, a real young star in Coronation Street at the moment. Love having her on. We had Max Evans, who played Corrie. That was great. Shirley Houston, I was really lovely speaking to her over Zoom earlier this year. Sue Devaney as well. Sue Devaney, sorry, coming on for our 500th podcast episode. I absolutely adored that chat, and a couple of our long time supporters in Georgia Taylor. We had that brilliant chat about the 1998 Corrie episodes early this year. We had Charlie coming on to talk about Charlie D'Amelio talking about the court case, and of course Sally Ann Matthews talking about everything from Coronation Street. So it's been really good. So if you enjoy the interviews, hopefully 2021's been a good one for you. Vicky Binns as well from the classic. Yeah. Molly Dobbs from the classic cast too.
I wonder if we need to have Georgia and Charlie on for a bit of couples counselling when Twitter and Imran start imploding.
I really hope that they don't this year. God, I want them to stay together. I really, that is my one true hope and desire for 2022 is that they stay together. They are so fun together, and because with they're our mates as well. It's so nice that they're also a couple on screen too.